Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to part two. And now we have our own Joseph Mastandrea telling us about Thailand, where he's just returned from, and apparently, going by his Facebook posts, he's had an amazing time. So, Joseph.
Hello, everybody. It was a remarkable adventure, and I will try to do my best to just share the highlights, because if we shared every detail, we'd be here from now till next year. And so, but Thailand, let me just pull up the wonderful PowerPoint and make sure you can see that. Good. And go from there. And 1 second. Let me just, 1 second. And okay. Bear with me. I'm just trying to move. Just trying to move into 1 second. Let me just mute for the second. I'm going to close the door 1 second. Okay. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stop sharing, go back to the beginning 1 second, because what I'm priming is there it is. Okay, slide is from beginning. Good. Good. Oh, I see, I can't do that. Okay, we're going to do this. Now you can see that?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to, now I figured out what I can do. There. Okay, good. I just learned something. The entire menu bar of PowerPoint, I didn't know you could move it. Go figure. We learn as we go. So Thailand, you might say, why did I go to Thailand? Well, a friend of mine, Gary McLaughlin, has been going for a couple of years now. So it was a tremendous opportunity to go with him. And Bill was going to go, but unfortunately, because his nephew, his health wasn't so good and his father wasn't so good, we're going to save that for another year. So here we go. This is the poster, but I'll explain to you later what this is. I'm just going to go into moving the top. There we are. So this is us at the airport. I think it was when we first we arrived in Thailand, and we were just, think of this as, we flew to Amsterdam, and we had a 15-hour layover, and then we had another 11 hours in a plane. So you can well imagine between fatigue and limitations. So we had our heavy jackets on because we were still coming into, it was very cold in the air conditioning. But yeah, so we arrived and we're full of a lot of energy. And this is call this, after we arrived, we had to stay for at least 1 day in a quarantine hotel. We had to do a COVID test, and then that was negative. And then we were able to move into another hotel. So this is, think of it as technically it would have been January the 6th. And what happened in Thailand was absolutely remarkable. You walk on the street, and right away someone says, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And next thing you know, we're boarding a tuk-tuk, which is a three-wheel, think of motorcycle with a big trailer in the back where two people can board. And then the tuk-tuk took us to a person who could lead us on in that boat on the top left. And we went on a canal, circumnavigated the canals, and saw our drivers right out front. And it was absolutely magical. We were seeing Thailand, or Bangkok, from, call it canal level. And so I showed some photos here. You see bottom left, you see the view on the water. Again, it just sparkled. And there, believe it or not, there was lots of fish. I think in some cases there was even alligators. So fortunately, we didn't see any of those. But I wanted to show you in the top right, again, immediately you knew you were in another place because you saw the Buddha. And yes, that Buddha is probably about 50 or 60 feet tall. But you get a sense of the people, friendly and kind. And they greet each other with Sawadika, the praying hand that says Sawadika, meaning goodbye. And so that's portion of day one. And then one of the temples that we saw the first day, again, when you look at that temple, doesn't it remind you somehow of an Aztec temple? And you see the again, the remarkable journey of that place in that time. And so that particular temple was one of the older temples, right up beside the river flow. And if you go further along, and we see, again, inside the temple, again, reminding you of what people did. They made merit, where they would sometimes donate a 20 baht or 50 baht, which is about $2 or $3, and light incense, and or sometimes give gifts of food or a robe of a monk. And it gives you a sense, and you could always walk in. You took your shoes off and honored and paid respect. And you can see many different versions of the Buddha. And Buddhism, as you may or may not know, came to what began in 600 BCE in India, and then spread very shortly in Southeast Asia, and certainly China, and certainly portions of Asia. But for some reason, it didn't take on west of India as much. And I still trying to do some research to figure out why. And you'll notice sometimes renderings of the Buddha are slender, sometimes more robust, sometimes female, sometimes looking animal. Like, again, this is on that same day, the standing Buddha. Again, you'll see markets around, and you'll see there was a stairway to go up to the top of this particular location. Again, it was quite remarkable. And that was part of that. So what did happen, the boat took us ashore, and then we took another tuk-tuk around to see another few spots. And we saw, what happened? Sorry, jump too farther. Okay. And then we saw, again, that particular day, this is the royal palace where they had the Emerald Buddha. And then you see the king doesn't actually live there very much. There's a summer palace as well. Quite often is abroad in many different locations, but that's for special occasion. We couldn't go inside there. And what you'll see quite a lot of is elephants. Elephants are very sacred in Thailand. And later I'll be telling you about how we went to an elephant sanctuary, a place where they discourage people riding them, about just honoring them, definitely. And again, very powerful. You notice that the particular images of the temple. And if you slide along, and then that's showing you, again, later, it was the next day actually, we went to, help me if I get the name correct, it was a market just outside the downtown by about 20 minutes. We took an elevated rail, and their transit system is amazing. 2 levels of above ground railroad, 2 levels of below ground transit. And so we took the elevated rail initially to the Jim Thompson House, and later we took it to to Chatuchak Market. And again, hundreds and hundreds of vendors selling food and clothing and all sorts of wares. And that particular day, I bought one of these fanny packs that made a comeback. So I bought one of those, and we had some great lunch that particular day. And then later the same day, we went to Lumpini Park, which used to be a private royal garden. Now it's a public park. And it's in the middle of the city. And not unlike our High Park, but what you're seeing immediately on your right is a monitor lizard. And monitor lizards are about 7 or 8 feet long. And you don't pet them. They're not, they could bite you, but they were sort of all over the park. But you know right away they're in a different space at a different time. Again, quite remarkable. And then we keep going, and there we go. And so you're in the middle of the picture. You see Win. Oh, sorry, it's jumping. Sorry about that. And there we go. Win. Win was a good friend of my friend Gary's, and Win was so full of energy. He was like our Gandalf and our Dumbledore, guiding us around and taking us to different places. And it was good to be able to do that, because again, as much as you can use guides. So he was, think of it as our unofficial official guide. And he took us, that was for, I think, our test. We had to have a second test 5 days in, but he took us to the Heritage rail station, which said initially we're going to tear down, not unlike our Grand Central or Grand Union Station, but they decided to restore it. And so we went there and around the immediate neighborhood, see elephants, and you see the bottom right corner, an image of the outdoor of that particular historical rail station. And you see on the top right, the image of a tuk-tuk. So again, it's 3 wheels. You are not, there's no seatbelt, and there you are going along. And then you see immediately in the center, the picture of the king, and Thailand is a kingdom with a king and a queen. And it's remarkable, the history of Thailand. So when Genghis Khan was doing his thing in China. The Sukhothai, southern China, came down into the region, and they're the people who were the first people to call themselves Thai, going back to 1200s, give or take. And then there's periods where they've had successful kingdoms and periods where Burma would not, Myanmar now called, would invade. But keep in mind, Thailand was never a colony of any European nation. Somehow they managed to keep separate. And the story of Anna and the King of Siam, yes, there's a true story, but obviously the Hollywood film is an adaptation, definitely. And so I'm just going to move to the next one. And bear with me. Sometimes these things. Okay, there we go. And so food, the food in Thailand. Oh, sorry. Yes, you had to be careful. Sometimes it was very hot, so you ate lots of rice, but the food was delightful and remarkable. So that same day, we were taken, you can see the market on your top right, and you can see us feeding the fish, and you can see the temples in the distance. And we went to what's called the Turtle Temple, and we were feeding the turtles bananas. And I've never fed, the turtles are about the size of a double dinner plate, and absolutely remarkable, and truly remarkable. And then the next day after that, we went to what's called the Golden Mount Temple. So that was 344 steps to the top. We went near the end of day, which is absolutely phenomenal and truly remarkable. And again, you could travel to, you'll see on the meter right the stairs, and you see then in the center the view of the sunset and the image of the Buddha, and you can hear the surround view of the entire city of Bangkok. It was extremely magical. Later that day, we went to one second. And then you see on the immediate left, as part of the temple's golden mount, we could write our name on this. It wasn't golden leaf, it was sort of like a brass leaf, but it's a way, and you paid, again, made merit. You gave some money, and you wrote your name, and people would offer prayers. That's my friend Gary putting one of these leaves on that archway you see right there. Again, it's quite remarkable because it's part of the temple's golden mount. And you see the next one, as sun is setting, again, getting ready for Chinese New Year. And so one thing I learned is that Chinese New Year is for many people, not many cultures. They refer to it as Lunar New Year, so Thai people celebrate it. Vietnamese people, Lao people, you say Lao, not Laos, and certainly people from Korea. And so billions of people around the globe, and that's at night. And again, very, very magical. And looking to the next day, again, this is us. We've by this point we've moved towns, and we've gone up to the middle of Thailand to Chiang Mai. Now, Chiang Mai actually has a population of 2 million, and was a key regional center that was first formed in 1200. So what you're seeing is a temple, again built in 1200s, and we're in the old town where our wonderful hotel was. And the hotel, again, very modestly priced, and they're surrounded by a moat. Now, the moat itself is probably 2 or 3 kilometers square by 2 or 3 kilometers square. I should did a run around it one day in the morning. But in this particular hotel, there was these wonderful koi pond. But again, you see Gary, he's putting this fabric, and we were, again, both of us placed this, offering a prayer in honor of merit. It was quite amazing that truly people are truly holy, but not in a pervasive sort of way, in a very meditational manner, and a very gentle and humble in many respects. So if we keep going and we look at, this is our guide. His name is Woody. Now he took us, it was after we arrived the next day in Chiang Mai, and he took us for a drive outside the city to the high mountains. And I say that it's the Washabib Falls, and then of course the Ik Kathonon National Park. And so there we went to what's called the Temple of the King and Temple of the Queen that was created a few years ago. But again, you see an integration of beauty that's inside and outside. Again, you see this wonderful walkway that's been included to help people navigate. You see on the left side a great sense of the stairways that lead up to both. The Queen's Temple was sort of a violet color, and the King's Temple was sort of an orangey black. And again, quite beautiful in many respects. And Woody was very helpful at navigating around. And then we go to the next one. So then we came back nearer Chiang Mai, We went to the cave temple. Again, here is something that goes back many centuries, again, below ground, and you see the wonderful mystery and invitation right on the same grounds. You can have an opportunity to feed the pigeons and feed the fish. Again, a great gift and to be part of and join in. Just slide over, and then we have the next part. And I'm just going to shoot. That's the next day. So we had another person drive us around, and again, this is Chiang Mai, and we're seeing the Silver Temple. Again, this particular temple again is attributed to another group of people. And I showed you in the top center, you'll see the night market, where there was about 20 different vendors, all sorts of different food, and the food was probably, now a baht is worth, 100 baht is worth $3.78 Canadian, so two people could eat for about $4 or $5. It was absolutely remarkable. And that gives you, top right is an image of the wall that goes back to 1200s. And again, quite remarkable. And then you go into the next day, later the same day. This is called the Sukkah Temple, which again is to the west of down the old city. And you get a sense of this remarkable climbing up several hundred stairs to the top. And you see Buddhist monks coming down. And then you see the same day we went to this other particular white temple, and the driver and the tuk-tuk, he took us to a silk market called the Thai Silk Market, and we saw live silkworms and someone forming and weaving silk. And the bottom section, you can see the view from the top of the temple, and then immediately right, you see Gary received a blessing from the Buddhist monk, and I also received a blessing. And it was quite a gift and honor to do that, because he actually he was making these wonderful string bracelets. And then we go to the next day, where we ventured out to an elephant sanctuary, where that's a place for the elephants who have either been held from circuses and or places where they've been ridden, or sometimes they've been injured. And here they have a comprehensive healing and restoring and receiving better nutrition. So there you have several elephants, and we stayed there for several hours and got to walk around. Now, because of COVID, they didn't really want you to touch the elephants, but we could see them from afar. And again, we got to walk around, and they also had dogs, and they also had cats in the elephant sanctuary. And keep going along, and that's Chiang Rai. Now, Chiang Rai is the northernmost tip of Thailand, and at the border of Myanmar and Laos. And so what you have there is one of the outdoor markets on your top left, and then you have a view of one of the rivers in Chiang Rai, and then you have a view on the top right of one of the Buddhist statues, and then you have bottom left was the bus that we took from Chiang Mai to Chiang Rai. And it's interesting how buses have changed very much. They had other video screens, and actually a bathroom on board. And that's an image of our hotel in Chiang Rai. And in the bottom center is the clock tower, which I'll show you a picture of later, which at night at 7, 8, and 9 plays music, both classical and contemporary. And the bottom right is an image. There was fruit, and the fruit pomelo. I had so much of it. It was actually quite remarkable. And this is sliding along. And so there's later the same day, it was raining, so we had our wonderful umbrellas, and that's looking at night. You remember I told you about the clock tower. So center top, you see the image, the clock tower changed colors, and with each color change, it moved to the rhythm of the music. It was quite remarkable. So the next day, we did a tour about with a person by the name of Peter. And Peter was very helpful. We went to the Blue Temple, and you look over on your left, and you see a bit of the interior of the Blue Temple, that's sort of, again, just adjacent to the left. And then we went to this, again, other house, middle, where there was all these interesting art pieces and lots of different alligator skins and other animals again. And what they've done in Chiang Rai is these art installations of the Blue Temple, the house, the Black House, and the White Temple are a way to help people celebrate art and culture. And they very much do this in Chiang Rai. And again, you see me on the bottom beside this. Think of it as a sort of statue. And then over on the left, you see Gary and I, and then over on the right is a Hindu temple in the midst of this Buddhist temple as well. Again, visually, it's stunning, and the people are remarkable, the history and celebrating people and culture. This, on the same day, we went to a tea plantation. And so you see this grounds. We actually had some tea, and we had some green tea ice cream. And same day, we went to the monkey temple. And there was a very tall staircase that went up the side of the cliff. And then immediately on the right, you can see the monkeys. There was hundreds. They told you not to pet them, but honor them and just keep them from afar. And then there was this amazing cave where there was this Buddhist temple inside the cave. Again, absolutely remarkable. And then you keep sliding along. And okay, so this is the same day. This is with our guide, Peter. And what you'll notice, there's us three. And then in the center, you see a scorpion. There was a scorpion temple at this location. And the immediate right, this is called the Golden Triangle. And the Golden Triangle, immediately to your north is Myanmar. Immediately to your right is Laos. And closer to you is Thailand. So you think of this part of the world that seems so far away, but it was amazing that it was a bright blue sky. You can see the blue water, and realize that this has been the history of many civilizations over time and space. And, quite beautiful. You can slide around, and this is another temple, and this is actually back in Chiang Rai proper. And you'll notice there was getting ready for Chinese New Year. There was lots of wonderful lanterns everywhere, and again the food. Remarkable. Every meal was very, very light fare, but very, very interesting nonetheless. And again, people were like, unlike here where you couldn't sell food in certain places, they could just open their wares on a sidewalk and start barbecuing and have set up tables and offer food to people, whether it be bananas. I remember, I forgot to mention, in Chiang Mai, there was one night where there was a Muslim couple. They were sauteing up fresh roti on their frying pan, and they put a sliced banana, and they put butter, and they put raisins, and they fried up, and it was truly remarkable. And also mango or sticky rice dessert. That was quite remarkable. And now here we go. This is back to Bangkok. And so here we have, again, for Buddhists facing it, we went to a place called the Ancient City. So think of Bangkok's version of Black Creek Pioneer Village. But unlike Black Creek Pioneer Village, all these are life-size replicas of temples all around Thailand. So you see on your bottom left, this was absolutely remarkable, interlay, and then on your right, again, showing you that your eye is looking up, meeting the sacred, and then immediately on your right again, you see two different vistas of the same temple. You would walk in and you would explore, and the difference is these were not just artifacts, they were places where people came to offer prayer during times. And this is we went on a day trip to a place called Ayutthaya. Ayutthaya was one of the capitals for about 500 years, from about 1300 to 1700 in Thailand. Now, unfortunately, the Burmese invaded and took it over, but you're right in the same location of Ayutthaya. We took a train to get there, and there's also the summer palace of the king. And immediately on the bottom left, you see that image. And then as we had a look around in the particular place, we saw this Buddha statue that had been enveloped by a tree. And you see me wearing elephant pants. Now, I had to apparently, I forgot that when you go visit the Bangpa Palace, you can't wear shorts. You have to wear. So I had to buy these for 100 baht, which is $3.78. These elephant pants, which are quite fun and adventurous. And so here's again Ayutthaya, the city, again showing. Keep in mind, it was a vast ancient kingdom, probably as big as Angkor Wat, but not as detailed. But again, you look at the architecture; it speaks to another place, another time, 11, 12, 1300s, and certainly absolutely mystical and magical. You know, something as I was observing this, if you look at right side, I couldn't help but think of how it's similar but different to the Aztec and Mayan temples in Mexico. So who knows? Maybe there was a cross-pollination of architecture. You slide over to the next part. The next day, we went on a train ride to the River Kwai. You remember the bridge over the River Kwai? Well, this was it. And it was rather comedic that day because we had 6 different stops. The first stop, we got off and saw a wonderful temple. And when we came back to the train, there was no train. And of course, we had this mini panic. We're in the middle of Thailand. We're not sure what. And then we asked a person at the station. And they said, oh, yes, it's coming back. And I thought, where does one put a train? But needless to say, they did. And there we are on the River Kwai. And keep in mind, I'll show you to see the food ahead of you. And you'll notice on the immediate left, there's a cemetery. And there were several thousand prisoners. Because remember, this was a bridge that was built forced labor by the Japanese during World War II to go into what was Burma at the time. And many died as prisoners of war, showing you the river. And there was also a waterfall there too as well. Okay. And so the next night, we went to something called Icon Siam. Icon Siam is this amazing, massive shopping concourse. But again, in preparation, we were going on a boat cruise that particular night on the river and showing the light up images of the dragon, very key symbol for Chinese New Year. And as you know, it's the year of the tiger. I'm actually a rabbit myself. But again, celebrating many different parts of, so you think of Italy, but the size of the Eaton Center, but honoring Asian culture with floating markets and everything else. And then if you look at then the next night, we went to a place called Asiatique, which used to be something comparable to Queen's Quay. Used to be much more wharf and shipping and warehouses. Now it's very much about restaurants and Ferris wheels and lovely places to eat and merry-go-rounds again. Oh, and immediately on the right is called the Ghost Condominium. Apparently there's a legend around it. It was built there. You can see it's very ornate. It didn't have proper zoning, so they stopped the building. And since then, there's been, unfortunately, many people who have died there. And so it's, I'm not sure why they're not tearing it down, but it's got a whole legend around it. They call it the Ghost Condominium. And this is the return back. So the return back went from Bangkok to Amsterdam. And you look at the land route we're going over. I mean, this takes you through Central Asia. You think of all the ancient places, it's truly remarkable. And okay, I think that's it. And okay. Now that's a whirlwind. Okay. And do people have any questions or comments?
What was the weather
I'm
like?
envious. Sorry.
Oh, it was 35 Celsius.
Wow, that's hot.
So what we made sure, I always kept my head covered with a baseball hat, and I always wore sports sunscreen, which was waterproof. So someone said, you didn't have a tan. I said, well, no, my goal was not, believe me, I would have burned to bits and whatnot, yes. But when you think of certainly that part of the world, and I know other than Thai restaurants, you realize these Thai people are truly remarkable. And it reminded me of some of the things we could do here when you saw how people could sell food on the sidewalk. They would do this early morning to midday, and they make a living. But I think what prevents us from doing that here is the Board of Health and zoning, but people set up tables. And for 40 baht, you would have a bowl of chicken Asian Thai soup. And this is a very massive, I got into having Thai chicken soup in the mornings for breakfast because one, I thought, I'm in Thailand. I don't want to eat egg, bacon and eggs. I want to try something different. And it was absolutely remarkable. And they had this one little dessert they had. It was, think of fried crepes the size of a Pringle, and they put meringue on it. And oh, they were so delicious and so delicious. And again, a people that you get a sense, there's old and young, a city that's very much on the go with lots of possibilities for many people. And, we we were very fortunate. we got to experience Thailand from the inside out because we got to meet people on the ground and hear the Thai story, not from sort of third or fourth hand, but from on hand. And I remember one night we went through Chinatown in Bangkok. Well, we think we have Chinatown. Well, their Chinatown is huge and so full of bustle and hustle and just people selling different things. And it's, I mean, just the culture and the places and the people, and truly, truly remarkable. Again, it's a part of the world I never would have gone unless my friend Gary had suggested. But again, it reminds us how today we're learning so much about each other and how we can learn even more. And, you know, you think of right in that part of the world, you have Thailand, the next door is Cambodia, and then just up north of that is Laos, we used to call it Laos, and then Myanmar, and then Vietnam, and then south, there's Malaysia, and of course part of Malaysia is Singapore, and then to the east there's Indonesia, and then further east there is Philippines, and there's then of course south of that is Australia, but then to the north you have Japan and Korea, and it's, when you think of, there's probably 4.5 billion people living in that corner of the world. It's staggering. Thailand itself has 100 million people.
Wow.
Yes. Now, has anyone ever known any Thai people themselves, other than people who own restaurants, or maybe they know people who own restaurants? So I had a neighbor once. He was, well, on Sword Street. He had a Thai restaurant on Gerard. It was quite good. His focus was having Thai food made by Thai people. Yeah. And quite remarkable. And there's a real sense. We bought elephants from the wooden elephants to support the elephant sanctuary, and bought some coffee there too. But to hear the good they're doing of helping elephants in sanctuaries and trying to get it, and very present and aware of ecology. We went to one exhibit and several others that are trying to integrate back into having trees and parks within the city and urban landscapes, which I think is very much what we're trying to do and be aware of. And it's very important and very powerful. Yeah. But, yeah. So any other thoughts or?
I'm very envious of you. I just sort of to see all those temples, and if you look very closely how intricate they are, and obviously they really revere the religion and things associated with it, and that's probably why the people are the way they are. It's their belief system, and it carries through their everyday life. And yeah, it's very beautiful. I just love. I'm envious about the elephant sanctuaries because I like elephants myself.
Well,
so it must be fun.
You raise a very relevant point. You see, their religion isn't put upon them. It's very much part of the everyday life. And so you would see Buddhist shrines outside hotels, outside restaurants, in people's homes. And so it's interesting how it's sort of, it's always around. And so other than, and I think in many ways we do talk about that in Christianity, but and we do engage to embrace that. But I think it's something that, because Thailand has never been taken over by another country, unlike some other Asian countries, I think that really made a difference, and to help them retain their own sense of who they are and their own identity, and which I think is because you think if we use the term indigenous, well, the Thais are indigenous to Thailand. I mean, it's really remarkable, but a real sense of harmony. I did forget to mention, we did go to one of the days near outside Chiang Rai, a long neck village. Now, I didn't take any photos because out of respect for the long neck people. And what the long neck people are, they developed this culture of putting rings on. I'm not sure if it's women or men and women, and they extend their necks, and I think it actually causes. I think it's called physiological harm. I'm not sure, but I could be wrong with it. But so we did go to the village. So I would call it, they would be more likely the people who have kept the heritage, the older heritage. Because I think long neck people are also in Africa, different countries of Africa. and also in different parts of the world. But again, they're trying to get away from that, but again, honoring the people and honoring the land, because what they're trying to do is make a sustainable culture of agriculture and farming and what they're doing in that respect. Yeah. But the elephants, again, absolutely stunning, and being connected to turtles and the fish and the birds and the list goes on, and the remarkable landscape and the cityscape too. I mean, you have again the old and the new, and the integration of the river and even the canals where you have people. There's one time when we were on the longboat and we were driving along, and there's one moment she was just selling soda pop and beer if you want to buy a beer. And I thought, this is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they basically sort of stopping by the side of the road, but their idea of economy is very different than ours. Right? I mean, certainly people have businesses with fixed addresses, but certainly you could sort of pick up and sell anything anywhere you want, and pretty well. I have a very different idea from that perspective. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. It's interesting because the West, coming from Europe, we tend to fight nature. And other countries live with it. Is it going to be cold? Okay, we'll let it be cold. Is it going to rain? We'll let it rain. None of this trying to control it. We'll climb the hill. We won't mow it down, sort of thing. So that's interesting.
Well, I love the color in the country so much.
Oh,
it's very colorful. It just makes you feel a lot. Well, physically, it makes you feel alive. You couldn't feel depressed, put it that way.
No, it's very colorful, and even though they said it was the dry season, it was still quite green. And I mean, you talked about an integration of nature. It's interesting because someone said when Indonesia had the tsunami a couple of years back, well, there's certainly people who knew what to do, right? And just like you, Ian, you talked about the Philippines. Well, in the monsoon season, you don't travel, right? So you're not trying to fight the monsoon season because you're not going to win. Okay.
Yeah. Don't fight with Mother Nature.
Exactly. Whereas we try to do that all the time, and I wonder why we're losing, so to speak. Yeah. But again, these are just the highlights. I could have showed many more images and many more possibilities, and but certainly every day was a new adventure. And so, but I guess there was always a sense of willingness of seeing and touching and tasting, and you would go to a place, and there'd be bowls of this and pots of that, and you say, "Oh, yeah." And I usually would say to Win or whoever was with us, "Well, what do you think would be good? Well, why don't you try that? We'll try that." And then, and it was every now and then we had something that was a wee bit warm, so to speak.
Yeah.
And but you'd make sure you'd have more rice to balance the heat out. Okay. And then
it would probably kill all your germs too, having the hot stuff.
I would say with Thai food, I felt this tremendous sense of energy. Unlike other food, it sometimes makes you sort of feel tired and weak, sleepy. So you're really aware of that. And one of the things I was also very aware of in some of the temples where you heard the Buddhist chanting, and you could feel the chant enter you. It was almost like it realigned your chakras or your being. And I did leave out one particular, it was a lying Buddha lying down, this massive, probably 100-foot long Buddha. And we went to one particular day near the Royal Palace, a Thai school of massage, where they put these sort of silk robe on you. And all they did was our legs, but it was so relaxing. Oh my gosh. And you felt a real sense of soothing and healing. Yeah. There are certainly people that are healers, I would say. Definitely. Yes. Yeah. So any other thoughts or comments?
That was amazing.
Well, thank you.
Are you thinking of going back there? Is there places that you missed or could have that you would go back to see?
Vietnam and Cambodia.
Yeah.
I want to see Angkor Wat. Wow. Apparently Angkor Wat would be as big as I'm not sure, quite large. And they still don't know what happened to the people there. But it was the Khmer Kingdom. Yeah, Khmer Empire. Yeah. And then even more interesting, but yeah. But we learned from the people before us, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. The fact that they were not overtaken really surprises me. Not that every country should be invaded, but.
No, and also, apparently there's a law now, foreign people cannot own land. So that's how they retain, which is quite bright, because as you know, what happens is you bit by bit, and I'm sure people bend rules and try to get around that too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you everybody for listening and being patient. And back over to you, Susan.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Hope you enjoyed this. Next week we will be having Joseph Curry, who will be talking about bees and their part in the infrastructure of life, and how even city dwellers, what we do can impact them, like things like what plants we keep, what plants we try to get rid of. So I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I hope you can join us.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Take care.
Well, thank you for taking us on a vacation. I enjoyed it.
Yes, especially in this weather.
Travels with JJ. Bye-bye.